Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Levita Ford, and I am the Interim Medical Center Director here. So, aloha. Oh, thank you. The theme this year is Bridging History, Shaping Our Future. Those of the AANHPI community have a deep, storied, and long history and continue to shape our future of the United States and the Veterans Affairs. In 2024, there are about 8% of our staff at the Atlanta VA healthcare system that are from the AANHPI community, with a good percentage of them being veterans themselves as well. So let's clap it up for
Hello, ni hao, konnichiwa, how's it? Kira ora, annyeonghaseyo, kumasta, kamsuda na, malo erere, jin chao, nyozu, and aloha. Welcome to the Atlanta VA Healthcare Systems 2024 Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month celebration. My name is Greg Doss. I am the Special Emphasis Program Manager, Committee Chair for the Atlanta VA's EEO, AANHPI Special Emphasis Program Committee. This committee is very diverse and has deep history and culture that spans many millennia. I thank you for coming today to learn about our community, the AANHPI community, our history, our heritage, and our contributions. First up, we're going to have the Snow Angels for their very first dance.
Next, we're going to have the PTK Atlanta group. And they're going to be doing their honors demonstration. So let's give a hand for them.
Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jesse Darnell. I live here in Atlanta, Sandy Springs area. Today we want to share a little bit about the amazing culture of the Philippines. The Philippines is rich in the culture of martial arts. Unlike a lot of martial arts, it's very heavily based in weapons. They start off teaching weapons and training in weapons, and then they translate those weapons into empty hand movements for self-defense. But I wanted to demonstrate 3 of the categories. One of them is called double bostan, or double sticks, 2 rattan sticks. All right, single bostan.
Next up, we are going to have our next presenters. This is the Atlanta Bujinkan Dojo Group. Please give a hand for them as they come up.
Hi, everybody. So we are the Atlanta Bujinkan Dojo, and we are teaching authentic ninjas here in the Atlanta area. We are the original school for this art in America and also in the Western Hemisphere. So we're going to start with some what we call ukemi, which is receiving the ground. It's being able to be thrown or fall or something like that and do so safely and come up again ready to defend yourself. And another thing that might happen is somebody might swing a weapon at you. There's an opportunity to learn to move out of the way of an incoming tool. So we could do any number of things. This is a traditional Japanese boken. It represents a katana. This could be, in today's world, a baseball bat or a broken up pool cue or a table leg or something like that. We'll give you a quick glimpse at some unarmed stuff. One thing that might happen to you is you might get grabbed by somebody, to be thrown in a van or dragged down the street. Wrist grab escape, maybe? There you go. And you also might get punched or kicked or something like that. We'll move on to some weapons. So one of the things that ninja are famous for is lots of cool tools and weapons. And these are training weapons just for safety. They're Japanese swords, and we work with those. We cut with them. We train against them, defending against them. This is sword versus sword. Let's see what we have. We have 3 types of weapons: stick weapons, cutting weapons, and flexible weapons. And those are fairly unusual. We're going to show you one of those now. Oh, let's just show you a modern day version of self-defense, all right? So this is just mild-mannered person reading a book. In this case, Sudoku. Ignore the martial arts gi, of course. And take it away. All right, very good. Very, very good. I think just in the interest of time, we'll sort of move on and wrap it up. Farmer minding his own business, attacked by a couple of bad guys. All right, well, that'll conclude us for today. Thank you. We are the Atlanta Bujinkan Dojo, and we have a table over here. Come by and visit us.
My name is Greg Doss. Again, I'm your SEPM. I'm also an Air Force veteran and Taekwondo black belt and a martial artist. First off this morning, since I have a willing participant, I'm going to have a self-defense demonstration, quick forms on weapons as well as on empty hand, and a quick breaking demonstration for boards. I'm going to ask for volunteers for the smaller boards so you don't hopefully hurt yourself. First up, self-defense demonstration. Someone's going to attack me from behind, grab my right shoulder. Ice! First, black belt form, Koryo, which is actually named for Korea. The old dynasty. There's 3 different kingdoms, one was Koryo. At least for my curriculum, we have what we call kumdo, which is also kendo, but Korean version. So you have heidong, kumdo. I'm going to just go through the basic cuts and blocks. I'd like to introduce our next very first speaker before our keynote, Ms. Cynthia Marcy for the Japanese American Veterans Association. Dr. Macri is a captain from United States Navy and from the Medical Corps. She served for 35 years in the United States Naval Corps. She is licensed in Maryland, board certified in gynecological oncology and OBGYN. Dr. Macri joined Eagle Force Health as Senior Vice President and Chief Medical Officer. I'd like to introduce Dr. Macri.
I'm gonna talk a little bit about the Japanese American experience during World War II, both the Nisei soldiers as well as their family members that were left behind. It's interesting that bridging our history and shaping our future is a theme of the of this year's NHPI celebration or Heritage Month celebrations. So I did a lot of research on the history of Asian American immigration to the United States. And as many of you may or may not know, the first settlement was called St. Malo it's a Filipino settlement outside of New Orleans, actually. And these were Filipino slaves that basically jumped off the Spanish slave ships in the bayou, basically, and ended up becoming the backbone of the fishing industry in New Orleans area. From that, obviously there was an uptick in immigration during the gold rush, and also it was the Chinese immigrants that actually built the most treacherous part of the transcontinental railroad. So that is as early as the 1700s and 1800s. Immigrants ended up doing jobs that were difficult, skilled in some cases, difficult and treacherous. So let's see. That is the settlement of St. Malo, by the way. And so the where there was success, right, of the Asian American or Asian immigrants, it began to breed contempt, right? Or the labor organizations started limiting Asian hiring, land ownership, and then ultimately citizenship. Legislation was enacted and was affirmed by the Supreme Court. If any of this sounds familiar to you, it should, because this is a platform right now that is being discussed, right, for immigrants and people of color. So internment camps was a thing, and the Japanese Americans were those that were affected by these internment camps. So history is repeating itself, and we need to stand by and guard against that. Next slide, please. Okay, so here you have, this is from 1907. The news article, or as actually an advertisement on the right, was for housing. So they wanted to squeeze, they felt like the Japanese, or the slur Japs, were buying up property in California, and they wanted to limit that by encouraging white people to buy homes, so to block out the Japanese. And then one of the more disturbing events was in Bellingham in 1907, and that was a group of Sikhs who were working in the lumber mills, again doing jobs that that the white labor groups felt were taking away jobs from them, and partly because they slept on floors, they didn't require meat, and stuff like that. And so they were basically driven out of this camp, and their whole camp was burned down. They sought refuge in the city hall, and they were the ones that were arrested. And so it's almost like overnight, the South Asian community, and it was largely the Sikhs at that time, were driven out of Bellingham and ended up settling in Canada. Next slide, please. So these are some of the immigration policies that excluded certain groups, and they're not new. And culminating in the actual 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act, which prohibited Chinese immigrants from becoming citizens. And there were other legislation that ended up, including things like, codifying in law inadmissible classes of people, right? So it was like anarchists, defined by whom? Beggars, epileptics, get that, right? Importers of prostitutes, diseased and disabled people, communists and communist sympathizers. And ultimately, they created the in 1917 the Asiatic barred zone, and that imposed a reading test for anyone who wanted to immigrate from Asia. All right. And then there was the Emergency Quota Act, where they decided how many people could immigrate based on based on how many people were already here. So since they limited the number of Asians that could come, they also their fallout was that they limited the number of people that could then become citizens. So the Japanese laborers that came to Hawaii and then came over to California in 1913, they enacted. Can you go back one slide? I think they enacted the first alien land laws, and those land laws restricted ownership and leasing of land to people who were not U.S. citizens. And of course, the Japanese and the Chinese were affected by this. The Japanese, of course, bought land in the names of their U.S.-born children. That loophole was subsequently closed. So in the key one, the Immigration Act of 1924 targeted the Japanese, but was not limited to the Japanese. So there were no more immigrants in from Japan after 1924. So go to the next slide. I think that's the next one. But anyway, so that when in 1941, remember the last immigrants came over in 1924. So they had already been here for at least 17 years, if not longer, when the Japanese attacked Imperial Japan, attacked Pearl Harbor, and martial law was declared on December 7th, 1941. So by December 8th, civic leaders, teachers, all the martial arts people, judo instructors, any successful Issei first generation landowners, etc., were arrested, detained, and considered for deportation or incarceration. So in 1942, the Executive Order 9066 divided the West into two military zones. One was the West Coast, and the other one was Hawaii, basically. So the military leader in the West Coast decided without evidence that the Japanese were a threat to the safety of the nation, their national security, and rounded up about 120,000 people of Japanese descent, many of which were U.S. citizens, and were incarcerated in camps, war relocation camps in the interior of the country. In Hawaii, the Japanese constituted a huge part of the economics, and so they were spared that, except for those people who were community leaders. So, and may or may not have been related to their Buddhist faith. So next slide, I think. Okay, so yeah, so even in Hawaii, there were two different groups of people, right? So my maternal grandfather, I thought this would be interesting artifacts, were in Waihawa in Oahu, and they had converted to Christianity. But these are my grandparents' alien registration cards, even though, again, they had been in the United States since the early 1900s and were successful poultry farmers. And my grandfather actually was the person who is a horticulturalist who domesticated the bird of paradise, that flower, the orange flower with the blue. Okay, next slide. And then on the other hand, my grandparents in Pahoa, Hawaii, on the Big Island, they were still Buddhist. My grandfather still had 6 U.S.-born children, but he was a community leader and a leader in the church. He was arrested on one of those arrested and was sent to not a war relocation camp. He was sent to a prisoner of war camp, and this prisoner of war camp was in Camp Livingstone, Louisiana, and this is a letter that my grandfather wrote to my aunt who was attending Tokyo Women's College. All the mail was censored, and if you look really closely, all of the instructions on the envelope were written in German, Italian, and Japanese. So my grandfather was then paroled in March of 1944, and he went to Camp Jerome. So go to the next slide, please. And this is Camp Jerome today. So Camp Jerome in Aurora is a preservation site that was, preserved by I can't remember what the name is, in 1988. But anyway, this is the old train depot in McGehee, Arkansas. George Takei, who you guys remember from Star Trek, I think, was a young child, and he was in Camp Roar, which was right up the road. So the Arkansas governor at the time was active in the KKK and agreed to accept these Japanese American internees, quote, as long as none of those people agreed to stay in Arkansas. So the Army Corps of Engineers then drained this swamp land, made it arable, and that was what convinced them. So then what happened? So the 120,000 Japanese immigrants, the Issei and Americans, Nisei, were moved into camps. 33,000 Japanese Americans served, mostly in the United States Army. So 18,000 were with the 442nd and 100th Battalion and in Europe, and 6,000 were in Military Intelligence Service (MIS) that served in the Pacific. Both groups were credited with, contributing to the end of the war. So, and this is what was alluded to in the very first presenter's remarks. 9,486 Purple Hearts, 8 Presidential Unit Citations, 559 Silver Stars, 52 Distinguished Service Crosses, and 1 Medal of Honor at the time. So like other segregated units, as you are well aware, many medals were downgraded or not even awarded during that time. 20 additional medals of honor were then awarded, and I think next slide. And then the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, the 100th Infantry Battalion, were invited by President Truman to the nation's capital after the war. So that we are celebrating the Day of Affirmation, July 15th. And President Truman said, "You have fought not only the enemy abroad, but prejudice at home, and you have won." But that's not where it ends. He says, "Keep up that fight, and we will continue to win, to make this great republic stand for just what the Constitution says it stands for, the welfare of all of the people, all of the time." So in his speech to the nation on July 15, 1946, President Truman affirmed that the soldiers standing before him were in fact loyal Americans, and that putting country first was the way to win the war and fight against prejudice, and that they were entitled to share in America's opportunities and to receive equal treatment under the Constitution. Next slide. And so this was, these are some a montage, I guess, of Senator Inoue, who was a late recipient of the Medal of Honor. I mean, after sometime after the war. As you know, Senator Inoue lost his arm. He wanted to be a surgeon, like me, and but anyway, went to law school after the war, after he lost his arm, and but served in the House of Representatives and the Senate, and culminating in 2012 of being elected by his peers in the Senate, third in line for the presidency, and that is our legacy. On the right is General Paul Nakasone, who was the head of, now retired, of the U.S. Cyber Command, which is the a newer command at Fort Meade, and the National Security Agency. On the right, this is me in the jacket because I was overweight at the time. And then the right next to me is General Shinseki, who, by the way, goes to my church at Fort Myer. But he was the chief of staff of the Army, and then became the VA secretary in pretty recently. And then on the left is David Iwata, who was in the Air Force, David Boone, who was in the Navy, and then this is the next generation in the middle, and that is now Lieutenant Commander, maybe Commander Select, Janelle Kuroda, who, like me, is from Hilo, Hawaii, and her she is a lineal descendant of a 442nd soldier. So that's this is our legacy. We are now allowed to serve after President Truman ordered the full integration of the United States military. We are allowed to serve freely and volunteer to defend our country. Janelle is a JAG. I was a can you go to first slide again, the title slide, and then the one right after it, because I should have, yeah. So we are the Japanese American Veterans Association. This is Howard High, our president. And if you go to the webpage, yeah, I have the little arrow pointing to join us. So the only criterion to be is not, you don't have to be Japanese American. The only criterion to join us is actually if you are a veteran. And this is just a small slide to show what, who, our origins. And some of the significant things we did was, to me, one of the most significant things was digitizing records so that they are now available for educational purposes from the National Archives, actually. And then, and now we have a scholarship program where we are providing scholarships to direct lineal descendants of members of the 442nd 100th Battalion and MIS who served in World War II. And we also provide scholarships for Java members, children of Java members. So this is the website, and Greg, if you could make sure that it's available for all veterans and friends for the future, we would love to hear from you. So sorry, talking so fast, but moving on.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me all right, and hello to everyone who's on the line. As Greg so kindly introduced me, my name is Vivian. I actually work for the CDC, so just down the street from you all, and I work in the Global Health Center. But I'm really here today representing as our Regional 4 Network lead for the White House Initiative on Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, Pacific Islanders. And I feel very privileged to follow that great sort of recap from the Java leadership around the important role that the Japanese Americans have in. But it's a very hard act to follow all of those great martial arts performances. I just wanted to give you a little overview about the White House, what the White House Initiative is all about, and so that you know that it is a resource and it is something that is a vibrant part of our federal government. So the White House Initiative and the President's Advisory Commission were first created over 2 decades ago in 1999 under the Clinton administration. It's been reauthorized by every administration, both Democratic and Republican, ever since then. And just yesterday, they had a gala celebration of the 25 years of the White House Initiative up in Washington, D.C. So in May 2021, President Biden signed Executive Order 14031 to reestablish and reinvigorate this historic initiative. And under this current administration, we've actually had the most expansive scope and mandate to date. And that includes everything from tackling health, economic, educational disparities to really expanding the collection of disaggregated data, which we know is especially critical to address concerns of our community. So our mission is really to drive an ambitious, very whole of government agenda to advance equity, justice, and opportunity for AA and NHPI groups. I won't read through all these little blocks, but just to highlight one or two, it's really about expanding economic opportunity for AA and NHPI families by making sure there is sort of equal access to small business, enterprise, and support for entrepreneurs. Ensuring that workplaces are free from employment discrimination and that we can also access consumer finance protections. And increasing opportunities for civic engagement, such as electoral participation, among other things. And I'm sure for those of you in Georgia, you'll have noticed that quite actively in the last couple of seasons of the political spectrum. This is just a quote from our current president, that the federal government must provide the moral leadership, the policies, and the programs to address and end anti-Asian violence and discrimination, and to advance inclusion and belonging for all AA and NHPI communities. As he said just yesterday, there's really no singular AA NHPI identity. It's really the diversity and the breadth of this community that brings its strength. There is a national strategy that was published by the White House Initiative last January, and which highlights 7 main priorities. One is inclusion in combating anti-Asian hate and discrimination. We saw this probably most strongly in Georgia after the spa shootings, as well in March of 2021, and of course a lot of the reaction during the time of the COVID pandemic. Priority number 2, which is making disaggregated data collection and reporting the norm for the federal government. This is huge. instead of being lumped together as AAPI, is being able to differentiate the needs and the very different, sometimes socioeconomic pressures facing different subgroups of the AANHPI diaspora. Promoting greater language access for limited English proficiency, prioritizing equitable, inclusive COVID-19 response and recovery, strengthening capacity building for these communities, promoting representation at all levels of the federal government. It's just great to see the folks who are here in the room today, and to know that overall across our federal agencies, we're trying to create more of a pipeline for diverse voices in our government, and leveraging outreach and connection to our communities, to federal resources. Our co-chairs, we are led by Javier Becerra, our secretary for the Department of Health and Human Services, and Ambassador Catherine Tai, who is our U.S. Trade Representative. The executive director for the White House Initiative is Crystal Ka'ai. She is the first Native Hawaiian to ever lead this initiative since the Clinton administration, and she's been a real formidable driver to promote these issues. This is just your standard organogram that we have to show, right? That there's 4 main work streams for the White House Initiative. It's communications and media, there's the regional network work, which is where I'm involved. There's the President's Advisory Commission, which I'll speak a little bit more about in future slides, and then an interagency working group that includes engagement from the VA. So first, just communications and media. They also work with the White House Office of Public Engagement to promote and complement the work that WIOMPI is doing. If you're interested in getting their newsletter, you can just go to our website and sign up to receive their newsletter. The regional network, we follow HHS's regional network, and so here we are in the Southeast, we're Regional Network 4. I had the honor of serving as that focal point. Greg Doss is our focal point from the VA, and he's been a great sort of contributor to our meetings that we're starting to get going again. Our aim is to really work across and through federal agency representatives to promote connections to the AANHPI communities in a given region. The President's Advisory Commission advises the President, as it implies, on ways that public-private nonprofit can work together to advance opportunity for our communities. This commission is comprised of leaders appointed by the President, really reflecting a pretty wide range of lived experiences and voices from the community. One of our commissioners actually is from Georgia, Victoria Huynh. She's based just outside of Atlanta. We have other commissioners based in Hawaii, Guam, and across the U.S. The Commission regularly meets on different working groups to draft recommendations for the President's desk on issues from health equity, economic equity, language access, and immigration. The full Commission meetings are public and they are held virtually, so if you ever want to listen in, you're very welcome to do that. Some of the recommendations from the Commission have already been enacted upon, which I'll highlight a little bit later. And this is from a recent meeting at the White House with the President. Even as we have a regional network that Greg and I are involved in, we also have a network at the executive level from the executive branch officials in Washington through an interagency working group trying to advance our work across the federal government. So the interagency working group coordinates the federal interagency policymaking, program development, and overall efforts to address the barriers for these communities. So the national strategy is, here's just an image of it, but this is Biden's national strategy on advancing equity, justice, and opportunity for AANHPI, and you can find it online. And here's just a few highlights from some of the great activities and outreach events we did last year. This is the 2023 forum with the most senior ranking Asian American official in government, which is Vice President Harris. This took place in Washington, I think, last May. And then more recently, WIOMPI has really been pushing for community and connection across federal employees of AANHPI descent and have started a leadership development conference. This photo is from, I think this is the atrium of the Department of Transportation, where people could come from all over the federal agencies and come together to network and to discuss issues of common concern. Strengthening the AANHPI leadership pipeline is paramount. This was, I think, from sometime last spring. There was a gathering of executive employees across the government with Vice President Harris there in the middle. And one of the sort of outcomes from that President's Advisory Commission was to establish a series of economic summits. So they've gone around 2 different cities like New York City, Philly, Seattle, Honolulu, and just in January they came to Atlanta to host an economic summit to bring together those AANHPI communities and make them have a forum to ask questions of federal agencies represented and to get more information, especially from the Small Business Administration, which is one of our lead sponsors for these summits. For the first time ever, the White House hosted a Lunar New Year celebration, which was really cool and very colorful and well attended. In this photo, just behind President Biden's left shoulder, actually, you can see former Deputy Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, John Tien, who was the first Asian American to ever hold that position. He just retired last year. And here's a snapshot of our President's Advisory Commission. Again, we've got actors and activists and community leaders and national leaders on this commission to advise the President on key issues for the government to take forward. Just a few highlights from this current year. As I mentioned, we had a summit here in January. The commission met as a group with public listening sessions in Nevada in February. And then we've had these other sessions, including higher education leadership development that was hosted out at UC Berkeley. And then just yesterday, a massive 25th anniversary celebration. And then coming up in June is the actual birth date of our establishment under the Clinton administration. So I'm happy just to stop there. Also happy to take questions either now or later if people have questions. I just, to know that that is a resource and that this is a part of what the federal government is trying to do and promote is something maybe not everyone maybe knew of. Even I didn't know about the White House Initiative just a few years ago, and I'd been with the government for quite a while. So thanks for the opportunity to be with you today. And you have a great champion in Greg here, and I'm really happy to have him as a colleague at the VA. Thank you.
I would like to introduce Ms. Rainey Youngblood. She is currently the Executive Vice President for AFG Power and Committee Chair.
Hello, aloha, ni hao, kumusta, konnichiwa, Namaste, Talofa, and half a day to everyone. My name is Rena Youngblood. I'm the Executive Vice President of AFGE Local 3511. I'm based here in San Antonio, um, but I am the chair for AFGE A-Power. A-Power stands for Asian Pacific Organized Workers Empowering Representation, and our sole purpose is to assist AFGE's Women's and Fair Practice Department in advancing AFGE's mission of building a union that promotes diversity, equity, and inclusion for all of our AFGE members and employees who identify as Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islanders. AFGE A-Power also serves as an advocacy group to provide education, resources, and to improve representation and inclusion of AANHPI, identifying members and employees within our workplace, our communities, and within AFGE. We work to help strengthen the voices and to improve the visibility of our AANHPI employees and members. With that being said, I would like to wish all of you that do celebrate a happy Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. To all of the amazing VA employees, thank you for all your hard work and the sacrifice that you make every day. Remember that you are the backbone of this country, and unions have been supporting blue-collar workers for many years. I humbly ask that you think about supporting your union if you are a union member already. Your union has fought hard to ensure that strong contract that you have, and they have fought for safe working conditions, those well-deserved pay raises, and of course, all those types of leave that you love so much, right? And so much more. And before I do end, please do not forget that May is also Mental Health Awareness Month. So if you do need any, if you're seeking help or need any assistance, please don't forget to reach out, text, call, chat. They've got the suicide and crisis lifeline, and I'll put that in the chat for you. But I would like to say thank you for inviting me, having me as a guest. I enjoy the presentations and the entertainment, and of course the amazing speakers. AFGE does also have other constituency groups. Again, A-Power for AANHPI members, but of course we do include, we always invite allies. We have AFGE Hisco, AFGE Black, AFGE Pride, and all, again, you can choose whichever group that you do want to become involved in. I do ask that you just log on if you are a member, log on, or you just go to your union office and ask for more information. Again, we are very active in our meetings. We do provide some education for AA and HPI month. We focus on Grace Lee Boggs. We had a movie night, and of course, we're very excited. On the 23rd, we will be having a Nepala speaker, which is the current president, Lagaya Domingo, as our presenter for this month. And then, of course, we work well with Apala. That is our sister brother union, and I'm one of the national executive board members. And again, we work closely. We not only work within the government, but we also work out there in the community. So if you have any questions or need any assistance, please reach out. Thank you. Si Zeus Ma'asi. Maraming salamat po. Sheshe. Pafate. Domo arigato. Kamsamida. And mahalo. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much, Reina.
Aloha. 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 I'm Chief Tui, and we have a little bit of music and drums coming up. I'm going to perform for you the Samoan Fire Dance. This is what's called a Siva Nifa Oti, or I Lao. They perform this of Samoa, southwest from Hawaii, about 5 hours. And this was a tool that they used to demonstrate their strength and skill in battle. When they saw an opponent, they would slash and do all these moves to intimidate them. And this was also used in daily life to cut down vines and to scoop food and to use for daily activities. The chief would have this to show his authority and power. And I'm going to do a short demonstration of skill and strength of the Samoan fire dance. It's what a warrior would do in his village. So, let's know it.
We apologize. It'd be nice and fiery, but fire code.
Toa mai Samoa sauni mai le ni forti Tofi mai le api to Samoa le nei Toa mai Samoa sauni mai le ni forti Tofi mai le api to Samoa le nei To Samoa sauia
Next up, it'll be Don for hula, presenting different various items.
Aloha. Mahalo for having us again. I'm going to demonstrate a hula, the native dance of Hawaii, using the hula implements. There's a feathered gourd called the uli uli, bamboo sticks called the pu'ili, wooden sticks called kala'au, and a wooden gourd drum called the ipuheke ole. And just a fun modern song called Papasia.
Homokaukau. Yes. Aye.
Kui ke ka'aoni ka huilala Papasia e a ukua e oe Kaua kui ke ka'aoni ka huilala Papasia e a ukua e oe Pasiala, eia o mamala ke he o nei. Au he avale o hea o papasiala, eia o mamala ke he o nei. kuanala papasia eha ukua e oe papasia eha ukua e oe.
Aloha! So this concludes the fun portion. So those that are in person, thank you all. Please stop by the tables that are actually for Japan American Society. Look around. Also, we have some food in the backside. Again, mahalo nui. Domo arigatou gozaimasu. Kansamira de.